Hi there, welcome to our podcast. I'm David Simony.
I'm Andie Schoenfeld.
Thanks for tuning in. Today we're going to be talking about Goucher athletics and how the school is impacted by the athletics, the new Gopher, and topics like that. Andie is a non-athlete. I'm actually a non-athlete as well, but I do work for the athletic department. So we're going to get two different perspectives here on what's going on in Gopher athletics. We're going to start with attendance. Andie, one of the biggest issues that Goucher Athletics struggles with is attendance at our sporting events. Not too many people show up. A few sports get, key crowds at certain games, even if that. But a lot of people don't show to most, if not all, of the events. What do you think about that? You mentioned you don't go to too many events. What do you think about that?
I think it definitely makes sense. There's a disconnect between athletes and non-athletes on this campus, and as someone who is not an athlete, but I do have friends that are athletes, I wouldn't say that being friends with an athlete necessarily makes me want to go to a game. I don't really hear about games unless I'm talking to athletic friends, and even if they tell me that they have a game over the weekend, it's kind of me trying to figure out what time it is. I also don't even know where fields are. I just know they're behind the gym, but I don't even know where the sports games are. And I don't know. I feel like there's not a lot of athletic pride on this campus anyway. So when games are happening, it's not something that is really broadcasted or things that are proud of, I guess. We're more of an equestrian, artsier type of vibe, I feel like, even though they're trying to revamp the whole athletic department. But I don't know. From an outsider perspective, it's not something that would encourage me to go to a game.
All right. Do you think so? You mentioned, you don't see too much. Is it an awareness issue? Do you not see the posts? I think some teams do post on their personal Instagrams, which you would have to follow to find out anyways, or the posters that are up about games. If you were to know about games, would you think about going to them more? Not necessarily going to them if you know they're there, but you'd have more awareness?
I feel like the lack of Goucher pride, if we're going to go there, is a main reason why I don't go to the events.
Okay, so that'll bring us into our next segment, which is impact. So what is the impact of athletics to you as a non-athlete? And that's something that that we can discuss as that leads from the crowds. I think if you get impacted by the athletes, if Goucher is, I think the thing what you mentioned was pride. We don't have too much athletic pride, like you said. And that would bring crowds, if we had athletic pride. So what do you think about the impact that athletics makes to the whole school?
I think it's relatively small, and I feel bad because I know that there are so many athletes who wish Goucher athletics were bigger and were a bigger part of this campus, but because it is so separated, it's hard to see the impact of the athletics on the campus overall. I know with the Under Armour and now the new Gopher, there are making waves to try to make it a more, athletic, quote-unquote, campus. But, I know so many stories from especially, the girls' lacrosse team and basketball teams, and just hearing the different situations that happen with coaches and players and things like that aren't necessarily positive. It's just not, I don't know. I don't see Goucher athletics as, the most positive thing on campus.
Last question before we move on. Is there a disconnect between athletes and non-athletes? And this might be a very easy answer because I know it and I think I know what you're going to say. But talk to me about that. How can that disconnect become smaller or become non-existent at all?
The disconnect is very obvious on this campus. I think it's because also we don't have Greek life, and there's no that separation of sororities and fraternities and then kind of the rest of campus or different sports. I think sports is the most blatantly obvious disconnect because of the fact that there are such specific schedules and there are different events and there's always something happening with the athletic teams, and for everyone else on campus it's kind of like you join a club, but it's not the same intensity as being on a basketball team and having practice however many times a week and having games every week. So I think it's also hard because I know from my athletic friends that they would obviously like to have larger crowds of Goucher students, but they know that there's not going to be that turnout, which is kind of sad. And I feel bad at times, but I also don't have time to go to games, and it's not something that's on my top priority list.
All right, so now finally to our last segment. This is something relatively new at Goucher, where these other issues may have always occurred in the past 5 or 6 years, even further. But what do you think about the new image? This can include the new Gopher, the new Under Armour contract, and all that.
I feel bad that I'm kind of laughing, but it's just, first of all, the new Gopher is super scary and super masculine, which I think is, it also does not look like a Gopher at all. It kind of looks like a cartoon Avenger Gopher type thing. But I don't know, I just feel like it's funny that it's such a masculine Gopher when the whole point of it was that they, quote unquote, were picking a gender neutral looking Gopher, but also this used to be an all women's school and now it's like super masculine. But also, I don't really know what the Under Armour, I guess, connection is going to do for the Goucher Athletics anyway. I do know that they're totally making a new equestrian center, which is not necessarily the full-on like Under Armour partnership, but and they're also redoing a bunch of the sports stuff. And I see that they're trying to make sports more of a priority on this campus and I guess more well known, but I don't really know if it's going to end up happening.
Okay, so jumping back on the two things you mentioned before, one of them being the vote, the name. So, what do you think about the naming system and how they did that? Or there's some controversy there, and I honestly don't know the full extent of what really happened. I voted for who I wanted. You voted for who you wanted. So
I actually didn't even vote.
You didn't even vote.
I honestly did not even care, and I feel bad, but yeah.
So, but what do you think about what you've heard?
Well, from what I've heard, I heard that the athletic department ordered shirts with Rowdy's name on it, and when Diggity was winning, they somehow messed up with the voting and they made it so Rowdy won. I wasn't paying very close attention like many other students who were. So I don't really know how that could be possible, but I just know that there is some controversy there. But I think if they would have just let students decide on what they want, it would have been a great PR move. And they kind of blew the opportunity when all of this controversy came out. But again, I did not vote for the name. I didn't even realize that voting was going on until the last day. And everyone was like, yay Rowdy or yay Diggity, or there were like 4, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, it wasn't something that really impacted my day-to-day thinking of Goucher athletics.
Got it. And so now the last thing we're talking about, you don't want to, that's totally fine, the political aspect of Under Armour. There's a lot of controversy going around, and not only on the college level, but the professional level of athletes who are signed with Under Armour who disagree with what their CEO has been saying and been talking to. I think this is obvious. What you don't know what I'm talking about.
I have no idea.
The CEO of Under Armour is good friends with Mr. Donald Trump.
Oh my God, is he really?
Yeah, so a lot of athletes, Stephen Curry, for example, have either declined to say something, which is meaning they're obviously on the other side, or have said, I don't want to talk about it, announcing that they want to support the athletic side of it. How do you think this plays in? A lot of students here might say, I don't like Under Armour because they support Donald Trump, or vice versa. Personally, my opinion is that this contract was decided before any of that information came out. And as a sports fan and as someone that works for the school and athletics, I want to support the athletics and not the political side of what someone may think as the
crazy.
CEO of a company.
Oh my God.
What do you think about it? Just knowing this information now, Andie?
Whoa. Well, yeah, I think because Goucher is such a liberal campus, I would assume that would be beforehand. I mean, granted, there are people who aren't liberal on this campus, and they're definitely in a tiny little section, and they don't feel safe on this campus because of that, and I really feel for them. But that whole, wow. I just think Goucher isn't a big enough school that would even be an issue. Like, I think if we were at Division I or something, and were in March Madness or whatever, and we were more well known, it may have been more controversial. But I think because the athletic program is so small, it probably isn't that big of a deal, and people just want to focus on the fact that we did sign a deal with Under Armour.
All right, sweet. So thanks so much, Andy. It was great to chat about athletics and give people a little information on what's going on from a two students' perspective. Any last comments?
No, thanks for having me. I don't know anything about sports, so I hope that that was helpful.
Awesome. Well, this is so much fun, and thanks for listening.